When our father made us fight for his inheritance, I thought things couldn't get worse. But then I found a letter from our late mother, buried under the old maple tree, that changed everything we thought we knew. I should have known something was up when Frank Winthrop, my father, sent a group text. The man once said phones were a government conspiracy, and he'd rather carve a message into bark than type with his thumbs. And yet 3 days before Thanksgiving, every one of us got the same 3-sentence bomb. Thanksgiving at the lake house. Everyone comes. No excuses. That was it. No, hope you're well. No emojis. Just a summons from the mountain. Lake-a. The lake house, if you haven't seen it, is the kind of place that ends up on the cover of overpriced real estate magazines. Wide wraparound porch. Stone fireplace the size of a small sedan. Lake Champlain stretched out like a shimmering mirror below. My siblings and I practically grew up there. Long summers of scraped knees, arguments over Monopoly, and our mother's cinnamon rolls that could heal all wounds. That is, until she passed. After that, it became more shrine than sanctuary. Lawn Summeralls agree. I'm Eli, by the way. The youngest Winthrop, and according to most of the family, the black sheep. I paint murals in Brooklyn now, teach a few art classes, and mind my own business. I haven't been home in 6 years. Not since Mom's funeral. When I told Dad I wasn't coming back, he just said, "Then don't." End of story. Until now. Wrists-raw. So yeah, I drove up from the city, gripping the wheel like it might bite. The November air was sharp, slicing through the bare trees as I pulled into the gravel driveway. Everyone else was already there. Typical. Ryan greeted me first. Older brother, CEO of Winthrop Timber, built like a linebacker with the smile of a used car salesman. "Well, look who decided to crawl out of his hole," he said, clapping me on the shoulder harder than necessary. "You're still using Dad's haircut, huh?" I shot back. "Heady? Sure. But the man once tried to bribe me with $50 to cut my hair in college." Megan came next, warm and awkward as ever. She had that yoga teacher turned lifestyle guru glow, all flowy cardigans and vaguely citrusy hugs. "Eli," she said, pulling me in, "it's good to see you. I mean it." Then there was Aunt Patty. Technically, she's Dad's younger sister, but she's always been more like a half-baked fairy godmother who never left the woods. She's lived in the guest house since, quote, 92, and has somehow outlived 2 husbands, 3 cats, and 1 raccoon she accidentally adopted. She handed me a mason jar of something murky and said, "Drink this if anyone tries to get you to invest in crypto." Inside, the tension was thick enough to frost a window. Everyone tried to act normal, but you could feel it, like the air was humming. Dinner that night was the usual Winthrop fare. Grilled venison, roasted squash, crusty bread, and just enough wine to make Ryan get performative about tannins. Halfway through, Dad cleared his throat. "I'm updating the will," he said. "Wetsy, you could have heard a fork drop." He went on, voice steady. "I've built a life. A business. And I'm not gonna let it rot just 'cause none of you can play nice. So here's how it's gonna work. Each of you is going to prove to me what you'd do with my legacy. Not just talk. You'll show me." Megan blinked. "Like a contest?" "A challenge," he said. "Over the next week. Then I'll decide." Ryan leaned back in his chair, arms crossed. "That's insane." "You're welcome to leave," Dad replied, sipping his whiskey. "But I'll assume that's your answer." And just like that, Thanksgiving turned into some kind of inheritance Olympics. What none of us knew then, what would start to unravel over the next few days, was that this wasn't just about money. Or pride. There were secrets buried in that house. Ones none of us had dug up. Yet. And one of them might just ruin everything. Morning at the lake house always smelled like firewood and black coffee. You'd think that'd be comforting, but I woke up with a knot in my stomach the size of a grapefruit. I hadn't slept in the old twin bed since I was 17. The same ceiling stain was still above the headboard, right where I used to stare and wonder what it'd be like to just leave. Turns out, leaving was easy. Coming back? That was the hard part. Dad was already out on the porch when I stepped outside, bundled in his old flannel jacket, sipping coffee like he hadn't detonated a family bomb the night before. "Sleep all right?" he asked, like I was lying on a guilt-ridden memory foam. He snorted. "Good. Builds character." Megan joined us next, then Ryan. Eventually, we were all gathered in the living room, waiting for what Dad ominously called round 1. He didn't waste time. pulled out 3 sealed envelopes and handed them out like Willy Wonka golden tickets. "Inside is a challenge," he said. "Something that speaks to who you are, or who you pretend to be. Complete it. You've got 4 days." Ryan tore his open right there, his jaw tightened. "This is a joke. You want me to choose between selling the Miller plot or preserving it? That land is worth 7 figures. And your mother asked me to protect it on her deathbed," Dad said evenly. "Your call." Megan opened hers next. She didn't say anything. Her eyes just flicked toward me for a second, and I knew. Whatever it was, it had to do with me. She finally spoke. "I have to tell the truth. To someone I hurt." Ryan rolled his eyes. "So you get therapy and I get corporate sabotage. Classic." Mine sat on my lap, unopened. I already knew it'd be worse. When I opened it, the paper inside was blank, except for one line, scribbled in Dad's jagged hand. "Finish what your mother started." I stared at it for a long time. That could mean anything. Dad nodded. "Exactly." Later that afternoon, Megan cornered me in the hallway near the laundry room, of all places. That's the thing about families. You never fight in glamorous places. It's always next to the mop bucket, or during the spinach casserole. "I didn't ask for this," she said quietly. "The letter? What is it?" She looked like she might cry. "It's not about you. Not directly. Just, if I come clean, someone gets hurt." "Is that someone me?" She didn't answer. "I went to the attic that night. If there were clues, they'd be up there, alongside the dust and taxidermy. The air was stale, the kind that clings to your clothes and makes your skin itch. I found the chest almost by accident, tucked behind a row of old fishing rods. It creaked when I opened it, revealing stacks of old journals. My mother's, leather-bound, dated, smelling like cedar and lavender. And tucked inside one of them? A letter. It wasn't addressed to me. It was to Megan. It was to Megan. Avie. I shouldn't have read it. I really shouldn't have. But I did. Het Minnes Berdagen. And what it said was the kind of truth that breaks people. Every sappa. Apparently, when Mom was sick, she wrote a second will. Not legal. Just handwritten. In it, she wanted everything. Everything. To go to charity. She didn't believe in legacies, she said. Didn't want her children fighting like vultures over a carcass. But the kicker? She asked Megan to convince Dad. Megan never did. And now? Here we were. Later that evening, I sat by the lake alone. The sky was bleeding orange into the water. I heard footsteps crunching behind me. "You read it, didn't you?" Megan said, her voice small. "Yeah," she nodded. "Then you know what I have to do." "Do you think Dad knew?" "If he didn't, he does now." I watched the water ripple. "So what happens when the truth finally comes out?" She smiled, sad and tired. "We find out who still wants to stay in the family." The next morning felt colder somehow, like the temperature had dropped with the trust in the room. Dad made pancakes like it was a normal family vacation, flipping them on the griddle while humming Johnny Cash. Megan avoided eye contact. Ryan was on his phone, probably trying to move pieces around behind the scenes. I wasn't hungry. I was trying to decide whether to pretend I didn't read the letter or tell Megan I already had. Then again, lying was a Winthrop pastime. Ryan. Dad pulled me aside before noon. Said he wanted to show me something. We walked out past the tool shed, up the ridge trail. It was steep and slick with frost. The trees were bare, branches twisted like arthritic fingers. He stopped by the old maple, the one Mom used to take us to for picnics. Ryan Ethet, a flat river stone marked something. He knelt, brushed away the dirt, and unearthed a small tin box. Inside were photos, deeds, a map, and a faded note in Mom's handwriting. For whoever still remembers the story. "You always asked questions," Dad said. "Now's your chance to answer one." I spent the next 2 hours alone, sorting through old documents. Turns out our family owned more than just timberland. There was a conservation proposal Mom had started. Plans for a nature preserve in her name. And then I realized something strange. Ryan had signed one of the early drafts. Back at the house, I found Megan in the den, flipping through a photo album. "He knew," I said. She didn't look up. I figured. "Why didn't you say anything before?" She shrugged. "Because the second you tell the truth in this family, someone decides you're the enemy." That night, Ryan had a phone call in the study. I wasn't trying to eavesdrop, but the man talks like he's addressing a boardroom full of hard-of-hearing executives. "We'll bulldoze it by spring if I can move this deal forward," he said. "Harold's just stalling. He won't make it through the winter anyway." He laughed. That was the moment something shifted in me. For years, I thought I was the outsider. The flaky artist. The disappointment. But maybe the truth was simpler than that. Boss. Maybe I was just the only one who didn't want to win this game. At dinner, I brought it up. "So Ryan," I said, slicing my pork chop like I was performing surgery. "Still planning to bulldoze the Miller plot by spring?" His fork froze mid-air. Dad looked up slowly. "What did you say?" Ryan's face flushed. "You're spying on me now?" "Real mature, Eli. Better than selling out your mother's memory." He slammed his fork down. "You have no idea what's at stake. You've been gone for 6 years, painting cafes and pretending you're above all this." "I never said I was above it," I said. "I just didn't want to drown in it." Dad stood. "Enough." The room fell silent. He looked at each of us, slow and heavy. "You're all so busy proving you deserve something. You forgot how to be decent to each other. This isn't about winning. It never was." He walked out. And for the first time since I arrived, I wondered if any of us would leave here with more than we came in with. If you've ever seen a family implode over pork chops and inheritance threats, you'll know the kind of silence that follows. It's not peaceful, it's electric, charged. Everyone waiting for someone else to light the next match. Noacy. The day after our little dinner meltdown, the house was oddly quiet. Too quiet. Even Aunt Patty stopped humming her usual folk tune about moonlight and mushrooms. Megan spent most of the morning in the solarium, journaling or pretending to. Ryan was holed up in Dad's office. And Dad? Well, Dad disappeared. Not in a dramatic way, just gone. His truck was still there. His boots by the door. But no sign of him. Not in the barn, not in the woodshed, not by the lake. Well, Megan and I did a lap of the property. I checked the ridge. She checked the boathouse. No Harold. "Should we be worried?" she asked, pulling her scarf tighter. "About Dad?" "The man once wrestled a buck away from the grill because he said it wasn't cooked through. He'll be fine." Still, it gnawed at me. Dad didn't just wander. Everything he did was deliberate. So if he vanished, it was because he wanted us wondering. By late afternoon, we heard a car pull up. It wasn't Dad. It was Cheryl. Now, if you just felt your stomach drop and you don't even know who she is, congratulations. You understand our family better than most. Cheryl was Dad's old assistant. She worked with him at Winthrop Timber for 20 years, left mysteriously right after Mom's funeral. No goodbyes, no explanation. And now she was here, holding a duffel bag and wearing a face like she knew secrets for a living. "He called me," she said. "Told me to be here today." Megan blinked. "What for?" Cheryl looked at me. "Back up. We found Dad in the gazebo behind the old apple grove. Just sitting there with a thermos, like he hadn't gone full ghost on us for 6 hours. Glad you're all here," he said, like we were about to start a board meeting. "Happer." He motioned to Cheryl, who dropped her bag and unzipped it. Inside were manila folders. A lot of them. "These," Dad said, "are copies of everything. Trusts, property titles, stocks, letters from your mother. And one final task." Ryan scoffed. "Another one? What is this, Survivor, Lake House Edition?" "No. This one's different," Dad said. "This one you do together." He handed Megan a folder. Then Ryan. Then me. Inside mine, a photo. Old. Faded. Us 3 kids and Mom, standing in front of the original Winthrop mill, smiling, untouched by bitterness. "I want a plan," Dad said. "For the legacy. Not just what you want, but what you think it should be, as a whole. You have until Sunday." We stared at him. "What if we don't agree?" I asked. "Then none of you get it." He stood and walked back toward the house, just like that. Ryan stormed off to the dock, cursing under his breath. Megan and I stayed behind. The wind was picking up, and I could feel a storm coming, literal and metaphorical. "He's going to make us destroy each other," she said. "Or force us to remember we're still family," I replied. That night I couldn't sleep. I sat in the den, flipping through the folder again, when I noticed a second envelope taped to the back cover, my name on it. Inside was a letter, my mother's handwriting. "Eli, if you're reading this, it means Frank followed through with his twisted little plan. He always said he loved the three of you too much to pick one. But here's what matters more. None of this is worth it if you lose each other. You, Ryan, and Megan, you are the legacy. The house, the company, the land. That's just scaffolding. Don't forget that. Love, Mom." I read it 3 times. Then I walked to Megan's room and knocked. "You up?" "Barely. Let's make a plan, before Ryan screws us all." She smiled. "I was hoping you'd say that." And just like that, for the first time in years, we started working together. Lane. We had no idea what Ryan was planning. But we were about to find out. By Saturday morning, it was clear the plan Megan and I had come up with wasn't going to hold water. Not because it wasn't thoughtful. We spent hours at the kitchen table, elbows deep in Dad's old ledgers and property maps, scribbling out what we thought would honor both the legacy and the land. It was smart, balanced, even left room for Ryan to keep part of the business, provided he didn't steamroll the force like it was a strip mall waiting to happen. No, the problem wasn't the plan. It was Ryan. Because Ryan had come with a plan of his own, and his was a pitch deck. Literal PowerPoint. Charts, graphs, projected profits. He'd even printed out glossy booklets like he was auditioning for Shark Tank. We sat in the living room again, Cheryl perched in the corner like a hawk. Dad had his usual poker face on, sipping coffee from his dented thermos. Ryan stood up like he was launching into a TED Talk. "Dad, the future isn't in conservation. It's in development with a conscience. Think eco-lodges, renewable resource centers. Think Winthrop going national." Megan groaned. "You want to slap solar panels on the forest and call it green?" "I want us to survive," he snapped. "You're acting like legacy means retreating into the past." "I'm looking forward." I exchanged a glance with Megan. We'd agreed not to ambush Ryan, but watching him run a corporate playbook on our childhood memories? I couldn't hold back. "You already sold part of it, didn't you?" I asked. "The Northern Tract. I saw the paperwork in Dad's folder. You pushed it through last year." Ryan froze. For just a second. Then he smirked. "It wasn't official. Not until Dad signs off." "You forged Mom's signature." That got Dad's attention. He stood slowly. Set his mug down. "What did you just say?" I saw the scanned copy. Mom's name, but the date was 3 months after she passed. Ryan's voice went flat. "You don't know what you're talking about." "Don't I? Because it sure looks like you've been prepping this takeover for a while now." Megan stepped forward. "You lied to us, Ryan. To Dad." He spun toward her. "And you lied to Mom." The room went still. I looked at Megan. She looked at the floor. Ryan kept going. "You told her you'd make sure Dad honored her last wishes. You said you'd speak for her. But you didn't. You buried it. And now you're pretending to be the moral compass? Spare me." "That's enough," Dad barked. But the damage was done. Megan was shaking. She didn't cry. Megan never did, but her hands trembled like they wanted to curl into fists. I stepped between them. "You want the truth?" None of us did what she asked. Not really. "But you—" I jabbed a finger toward Ryan. "You built an empire on it, and now you want a plaque with her name like that makes it okay?" Ryan scoffed. You think living off Etsy commissions and moral superiority makes you better than me? Please. I don't think I'm better. I think I'm not a liar. There's a difference. Dad clapped his hands. Loud. Sharp. It was like a gunshot in a funeral home. Niederbrung. Enough. Everyone sit. Now. We obeyed. I gave you all a week to show me what you'd do with this legacy, he said. And what you've shown me is that you're all still stuck. Stuck in old rivalries. Old lies. Old wounds. He paused. His face softened for the first time in days. You think this is about money? It's not. It's about who can carry this name forward without breaking under it. He looked at Megan. Then me. Then Ryan. So here's the deal. Tomorrow morning, I'm reading the will. No more games. No more tests. You've had your say. Now I'll have mine. He walked out. The room stayed frozen. Cheryl quietly gathered the folders and disappeared down the hallway. Megan left next. I followed her out to the porch. You okay? I asked. No, she said without looking at me. But I will be. After tomorrow, one way or another. Inside, I heard the soft slam of a door upstairs. Ryan retreating. And me? I just sat there, staring out at the dark lake, trying to figure out how we all ended up so far from where we started. The house felt like it was holding its breath. And tomorrow? It was going to exhale. I woke up before sunrise, couldn't sleep, couldn't sit still, the kind of restless that makes you wonder if your soul's trying to crawl out for fresh air. The lake was still, just a pale shimmer in the early morning haze. I sat on the porch steps with a blanket around my shoulders, watching the light creep in slow. Megan joined me an hour later, her hands wrapped around a mug so chipped it should have been retired. Feel like we're about to get sentenced, she said. Yeah, I muttered. Only no one knows what the crime was. By the time Dad gathered us in the study, the tension was sharp enough to draw blood. Cheryl stood off to the side, a folder in hand. Legal stuff, no doubt. Ryan sat rigid on the edge of the couch, his eyes locked straight ahead. Megan looked composed, but her knuckles were white where they gripped the armrest. Dad didn't sit. He stood behind his desk like a judge about to deliver a verdict. I've made my decision, he said. And before I tell you what it is, I want you to hear something. He nodded to Cheryl, who opened the folder and pulled out a letter. Old. Handwritten. Faded with time. Her voice was calm but steady as she read aloud. It was from Mom. Harold. If you're reading this to the kids, it means you followed through. You always had to test them, didn't you? Just remember this. The legacy isn't the money. It's the name. The choices. The truth. And the truth is, I didn't want the estate to be split. I wanted it to be whole. I wanted it to heal. So if you must divide it, do it in a way that brings them back together, not drives them apart. Don't reward ambition. Reward heart. Love. Linda. Megan's breath caught. Ryan said nothing. I felt like the walls were closing in, and not in a bad way. More like the house itself was pulling tight around us, whispering, Finally. Finally, you're listening. Dad took a deep breath. Eli, you get the lake house, he said. It was your mother's favorite place. I want it preserved. You'll hold the deed. But you don't own it. You protect it. Use it however you want. Artist retreat, community space, I don't care. But it stays in the family, untouched. I blinked. My mouth opened. Nothing came out. Megan, he continued, you're getting the Winthrop Foundation. All of it. Every donation channel, grant program, every community initiative your mother started and you helped grow. It's yours to lead. Megan exhaled like she'd been holding her breath for a decade. And Ryan. His voice faltered slightly, just for a second. You still run the company, but under new oversight. You answer to a board, your siblings included. You keep it ethical, sustainable, transparent, or it's gone. Ryan flinched. You can't just... I can, Dad said sharply, and I just did. There was a silence after that, not awkward, not angry, just stunned. And then Dad did something I hadn't seen in years. He smiled. Now that the legal dust is settled, he said, I buried something else. Not money, something more important. He motioned toward the back door. We followed him up the ridge trail again, to the maple tree. Kate. He pointed at a fresh patch of turned earth. Kate. Go ahead, Eli. Dig. I knelt, hands scraping through cold soil until I hit something solid. A wooden box. Inside? Old photos. A pair of my mother's gardening gloves. Her wedding ring. And a second letter, folded neatly. This one wasn't to Dad. It was to all of us. Dear Ryan, Megan, and Eli, if this family is ever going to survive the weight of its own name, it has to start now. With you. There's nothing left to fight for. There's only what you build next. So build something good. Something worth your children inheriting. Love, Mom. No one said anything. There was nothing left to say. Ifeamel. We stood there. The three of us. Side by side. Staring out over the lake while the wind danced through the trees like it remembered who we used to be. And just like that, something shifted. See. Not fixed. Not healed. But ready. See. The next morning, the house was different. Quieter. Like it had finally let go of something it had been holding on to for too long. No more whispered arguments in the hallway. No more sidelong glares over coffee. Just calm. I sat on the dock, my legs dangling over the water. It was cold enough that my breath ghosted in front of me, but I didn't mind. For once, the silence wasn't suffocating. It was earned. Megan showed up beside me with 2 mugs of coffee. She handed one over without a word, and we just sat there for a while. You know, she said eventually, Mom always wanted this, not the drama. This, the peace. I think she knew it would take a war to get us here. We both smiled. It wasn't sad. It was real. Inside, Ryan was making breakfast. Let me repeat that. Ryan was making breakfast. Pancakes, bacon, eggs, the works. He wasn't talking much, but he wasn't avoiding anyone either. And when Dad walked in and gave him a nod, Ryan nodded back. Havoc Kangan. Something had shifted. Not a miracle, but a start. After breakfast, everyone began packing up. It was Sunday, after all. People had lives to return to. Megan had her foundation to launch. Ryan had board meetings to plan for. And me. I had a house to figure out how to turn into something that didn't just sit there and rot in the weight of its history. Megan Sabinsi. Dad pulled me aside before I left. Megan Sabins. You did good, Eli. I raised an eyebrow. By surviving? By staying. He handed me a small, flat envelope. Inside was a single photo. It was us. Me, Ryan, Megan, and Mom, standing in front of the lake house years ago. We looked like strangers and siblings at the same time. Don't forget, he said, clapping a hand on my shoulder. You were always the one who saw the cracks. Now you've got the chance to fill them. I didn't say anything, just nodded. Before I left, I stopped at the maple tree one last time. The box was gone. Dad must have taken it. But the earth still looked a little disturbed. I dug a little hole, just with my fingers, and dropped the photo in. Covered it back up. One he. Not burying it. One he. Just planting it. 2 weeks later, Megan emailed me a photo. The Winthrop Foundation had launched its first youth art program in Burlington. My name was on the flyer, apparently. She didn't ask, just did it. A month after that, Ryan called. Not to fight. Just to talk. About ideas. About the company. About legacy. A bond to ace. And last week, I hosted the first writing retreat at the lake house. 5 people showed up. One of them cried when she saw the fireplace. Said it reminded her of her grandfather. I told her to make herself at home. Amadi jocks, the lake's still cold. The house still creaks. but it doesn't feel haunted anymore. It feels like it's breathing again. And for the first time in years, so am I.